All right, guys, welcome to the first lesson here. We're going to try and do this the best we can, just recording over the lessons. Hopefully you're able to hear and see everything. We're just going to go through. It's just going to be like a regular class here. So I'm just going to go through the notes. You guys take notes on the video, and then I will post the assignment each day, and then you can work on that, and then I'll post the answers the next day so you can check to see how you're doing. So to start here, we have our warm-up. If you guys want, you can pause the video first and answer these questions yourself. Otherwise, I'm just going to run right through them here. So the first question says, what is y equals mx plus b mean? Or in other words, what does y equals mx plus b mean? And as you guys remember from Algebra 1, this is slope-intercept form. So we've got slope-intercept form. Okay, and the m stands for, in the second question, the m stands for the slope, which is also rise over run, and b is the y-intercept. And if you guys remember, the y-intercept is the point that the line crosses the y-axis. Okay, last question, how do you find the slope? Well, as we know, slope is rise over run, as I just wrote before. And then using algebraic principles, it's also y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Okay, so that's a quick review from algebra in terms of what we know about slopes of lines and how to write equations of them. So in section 3.4, we're going to kind of go back a little bit. This is standard E. I can determine if two lines are parallel, perpendicular, or neither, and write equations of parallel and perpendicular lines. So a lot of this is review, and maybe for some of you, this actually will help you reiterate and reemphasize being able to do this a little bit better than maybe before. Okay, so to start here, we're going to look at 4 different types of graphs of linear equations. On the first one, we have one that is going from left to right. It is appearing to increase. The second one, it is appearing to decrease from left to right. The third one would appear to be horizontal, and the fourth vertical. So if you were to answer these 3, what types of slopes does each line have? The first one, right here, the first one is going to have a positive slope. All right, so because as it's increasing from left to right, it's going up as the y's increase and the x's increase. That is your positive slope. The next one then would be a negative slope, okay, because it's as the x's increase, the y's decrease. Now this one, we have a flat line, which would imply there's a horizontal slope, maybe. I guess I have to move it a little bit. That is actually going to be a horizontal slope. Not sure why that's not being written there. And that slope is 0. So in this one, we would say that m equals 0 because it has no rise. And then a vertical line, as you guys remember, does not have a slope. It's undefined. All right. So how can you use parallel slope, or how can you use slopes, excuse me, to determine if lines are parallel? Remember, when slopes are parallel, okay, when lines are parallel, slopes are the same. When lines have parallel slopes, the slopes are the same. When they're perpendicular, they are negative reciprocals of each other. So if you guys remember how to find the reciprocal, if we have an example here, so let's say we have 2 is our slope, the negative reciprocal would be negative 1 over 2. Okay, so we take the number, we write it as a ratio, we flip it, and then we take whatever sign and it would make it the opposite of that. So in this case, it was positive, it becomes negative. If it was negative, it would become positive. And then for neither, slopes are everything else. I know it's not the most educational answer, but as long as you guys can tell me the difference between parallel and perpendicular, and then know that if they are neither the same nor negative reciprocals, then you should know that they are in fact just two regular lines. All right, so an example that we could use to do this is find the slope of each line and then determine which lines are parallel, perpendicular, or neither. Okay, so you're going to be looking here to see which lines have the same slope, which ones have negative reciprocals, or neither. Okay, so looking at the graph of A, this is in slope-intercept form, right? Y equals mx plus b. So in this case, we just want to look at slopes. Okay, that's what we're trying to find and compare. So the slopes for this one, or the slope for line A, is going to be -5. I'm going to write it over 1, just so that way we have it like that. Okay, and then the second line, we don't really have it in a form yet, but we do know that y is by itself. So what we can do is actually simplify it so that it is in slope-intercept form. So y is going to stay the same. This becomes -5x and then -15. Okay, now again, we're trying to find the slope. So in this case, the slope is still -5. Okay, so we'll come back to that in just a second here. Now this one, equation C, is in standard form. Okay, now what we're going to have to do is, if you guys remember, we're going to have to solve this for slope-intercept form, because we can't actually identify what the slope is right now without actually looking at the equation in slope-intercept form or point-slope form, because standard form does not tell us the slope. So what we would do is we'd isolate our y by getting rid of the x here. Okay, so we're going to have 5y equals -x plus 15. Divide everything by 5. So I'm going to get y is equal to -1/5 x plus 3. Okay, so now that this is in slope-intercept form, we now know that the slope for this one is -1/5. Okay, so now that we have the slopes, now we need to figure out, okay, are any of them parallel, perpendicular, or neither? So in this case, I'm just going to indicate using red here which ones are parallel. So as you can see, graphs A and B are in fact parallel. Okay, so I'm going to just put a little box around both of these to indicate that these are parallel. Now, are A and C or B and C parallel? No, they are not. So only A and B are going to be parallel. Now, to do perpendicular, okay, we're going to have to find that negative reciprocal. All right, so if we look at each of the slopes, we got to just convert them. So the negative reciprocal of -5/1 is actually going to be +1/5. All right, so if we look at that here, right now, I mean, looking at C, we do not have similar slopes here that are exact same. So since we know that these were parallel, we also know that B must also have a slope of 1/5. And then if we go to the negative reciprocal of C, this is +5. Okay, so looking at this here, there aren't any lines that are actually perpendicular here from what I can tell. So looking at this, we do not have any that would indicate that are going to be identified as blue. Okay, now we're going to identify neither. Okay, so this would be, C is going to be neither parallel nor perpendicular to what A and C are here. So you can tell that they are not the same by looking at those slopes. Since they are not the same, or they are not negative reciprocals of each other, we cannot identify them as parallel or perpendicular. Okay, so those would be neither. All right. Now, where this would go is, without graphing, be able to tell whether the line through the given point rises, falls, is horizontal, or is vertical. So basically, you're just finding the slope. So this is going back to y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So if I were to do this, okay, I'd have 1 minus 1 and 3 plus 5. Okay, so we have 0 over 8, which is 0. Okay, so if we go back to that slide from the very beginning, you should remember that horizontal slopes have a slope of 0. So this would actually be a horizontal line given its slope, okay? So we're going to do that for the rest of these here. So we're going to do m equals -4 minus 0 over 2 plus 6. Okay, so we got -4 over 8, and that's going to equal -1/2. So since we know this is a negative slope, this is going to be a graph that has a line that falls. Okay, this would be a negative slope. If you guys want to pause and try the next two on your own here, go for it. And as you probably know, I am already simplifying some of these ahead of time with the subtracting a negative, turning it right away into a positive. So if that's what you're confused about, like the 2 plus 6, if it was 2 minus -6, you guys should know that that turns into 2 plus 6. So if you want to pause, try C and D in your own quick, and then replay at this point here. You can check your answers to see how you did. Okay, so we got m is equal to 8 minus 3 over 5 plus 1. So this is 5 over 6. So m equals 5/6. So this would rise. All right, and then the last one, I have m is equal to 6 plus 1 over 4 minus 4. So that's going to be 7 over 0. And we know that that is undefined because we cannot divide by 0 here. So this would mean that this is a vertical line. All right. Hopefully that made sense. Again, just finding the slope, guys. That's all we're really doing here. And that's all we're really doing to compare what we're doing on this section. It's just more or less a review of what we've been doing. So if we were to extend this just a little bit, go some more applications here, because you might see this on the homework. For those of you that do have your books at home right now, if you do not, you might have to do the Khan Academy assignment that I will tell you. So once I get everyone's information on that, I'll send that out to you. But what would be a parallel slope to B? Well, since parallel slopes need to be the same, you would simply answer that m would need to be -1/2. So as long as the line is equal to -1/2, that's what we need to know. Okay, and then, oopsies, this isn't lining up. And then for what would be a perpendicular slope to C, so we have the slope right here. Okay, if I were to scroll down, we know that the negative reciprocal to that, m is equal to 5/6. This would need to have a negative reciprocal of -6/5. Okay, so that is pretty much it for 3.4 here, you guys. I will be sending out the 3.5 video to you on the next day here, so that way you're able to take the notes on that as well. Best part about this, guys, you're able to go back, rewatch. If you have questions on anything in the video, please let me know. Okay, I'll do my best to keep this updated, and if you do not have a book, don't worry. You'll still be able to do all the assignments that I'm going to be pushing out to you. You're just going to do some in Khan, and we'll work on trying to get you guys your books so you can actually do the lessons and the homework along with that. Okay. Again, if you guys have any questions, please let me know, so that way we're able to get as much of this done for you as easily as possible. All right. Have a great rest of your day, guys. And again, if you do have questions, please reach out.